Salvē, Mika, and welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at John chapter 6, verses 8 through 10. At least I think it's 8 through 10. At some point in this chapter, the Latin and the Greek verse numbers are going to mismatch because the Latin, I think, what is it? I think it takes, it's either more or less of one verse than the Greek does, and it drops out the final number, I think. But last time in John chapter 6, here is our rubric. Let's go ahead and get started. Dicit ei unus ex discipulis eius, Andreas, frater Simonis Petri. Est puer unus, hic qui habet quinque panes hordiacios et duos pisces, sed haec quid sunt inter tantos. Dixit ergo Iesus, facite homines discumbere erat, autem fainum multum in loco. Discumberunt ergo virid numero quasi quinque milia. Yeah, sorry about my voice, getting over a cold. Very beginning of verse 8, we see dicit, our very familiar present tense verb for speaking, and then we got ei as the direct object of the verb to speak. And then unus is our subject, the verb with the us nominative, singular, masculine, and then a prepositional phrase, ex, which is going to take the ablative, which we see in discipulis. Eios can't be a part of it because it is from is, id, and not in the correct case. Instead, it is in the genitive case rather than ablative, which discipulis is. So is, id for that one, genitive, singular, common, plural, masculine. And then we get the name of who this is. This Andreas, this as is a Greek nominative form. And if you know any Greek, then note that his name is made up of the word onder, which is the Greek word for man. It's the equivalent to vir in Latin. So his name means manly. But as for the Greek nominative, singular, masculine. And then frater, acting as predicate again of that. Frater who? Well, Simonis, is there for Simon, Simonis, genitive, singular, masculine, and then Peter, Petri, with I, another genitive, singular. Those two together owning frater. Then moving on into verse 9, we have what Andrew is saying. Jesus, est, a declarative statement because the verb of being is appearing at the beginning, and then puer as our subject of the verb we don't need to parse because we see it's in the nominative form already, and then unus just confirms that for us. Note that unus is functioning here effectively as the indefinite article in English, so that's one. I'm going to include both of them, but I'm going to have that as the primary meaning, so it's going to be one boy or a boy. Hic is the adverb, meaning here. It is equivalent to the Greek word hode, here at this place. So it's not from hic, haec, hoc. We don't need that because we've already got the unus acting as a articulation. Qui must match the case, the number and the gender of its referent, which is puer, so nominative because of the I, but then singular and masculine because of unus puer. Habet confirms that this singular with et, third singular. Present stem is active and it is indicative. And what does he have? Well, quinque panes with the es. We already have a singular subject. Es can't be nominative plural, so the only remaining option is accusative plural, and then panis is masculine. Quinque is going to be indeclinable, but modifying panis. All right, indec. Yeah, I don't have indec on here. I need to add that, probably among other things. But then we get a specification of what type of bread in a predicate position. Hordiacios, os is going to be accusative, plural, masculine as well. I think that this is by itself a noun. It's not acting as an adjective. I could be wrong in my memory when I looked it up, but I think it's bread, comma, or really loaves, comma, barley ones. So that's how I'm going to treat the translation. And then note that we have this conjunction, and it is connecting with a duos, clarifying this for us, another direct object of habet to this previous direct object. And duos is modifying pisces duos, one of the numbers that does actually decline, so this es is going to be the same form as panes. Duos tells us that it's the same gender as panes, because duos is an adjective, unlike what I remember about that one. I'm not going to parse either of these. Notably, in the Greek, the word that we have for fish is this interesting little thing here. Opsaria. And the iota right there and the AR alpha rho right there make this word into a diminutive of another Greek word, which is, if I can remember it, I think it's opsos or opson. Yeah, it's got to be opson because it's neuter. But we don't have the diminutive form of pisces in the Latin. What opsaria probably means is something like sardines or anchovies, whichever is native to the lake there, whereas pisces is just fish. Latin probably has some greater distinctions for that, but since I haven't looked up the recipe for fish sauce, I don't actually know all those words. But moving on into our next clause, said hike, but hike, note with the AE, we have a couple different options. We've got the nominative singular, doesn't make sense because we got things that are plural just spoken about. We have the nominative plural for the neuter, or the accusative plural for the neuter. And remember that when we have someone say something and then speak about what they just said or speak about what somebody else just said, the words, the statement becomes a neuter plural, which is what would make sense here. So there is this thing, but that thing that I just spoke about, this plural thing, or these as a unit together, would become neuter plural. And with sunt, it is going to be nominative. So we take a look at this. Tantos with the omicron, the os can't be the object of hike, wrong gender, and can't be the subject because it's wrong case for accusative plural, and masculine because of the os, and it's also part of a prepositional phrase telling us that inter is taking the accusative. So sunt must find its subject elsewhere, hike being the best option. So nominative, plural, neuter. And then quid here, it's not modifying hike. Instead, it is just, I think it's functional. What is the, it's not, I don't think it's functioning as a particle. I think it's functioning adverbially. So we would just translate it as what. Moving on then into verse 10, dixit ergo, we've gone from the present tense to the perfect tense here, otherwise unchanged, ergo. Therefore, Jesus as our subject with the us, so we don't need to parse that. And then his speech begins with this verb, we know because of the te. So this is from facio facere feci factum, with the te off of the, not the, I forget what the right word was, but basically the stem with the sort of connecting vowel, but since this is a third IO, yeah, it's third IO, it doesn't really have a proper connecting vowel, but that tells us that this is going to be the second person plural present stem active imperative. So make homines es. He could be speaking to the people, but instead, since we've got Andrew and Philip beforehand there, it's more likely that he's going to be speaking to them, especially since because of what we see happening next. So homines, either nominative plural or accusative plural masculine, and then we see discumbere with this re on the present stem with the connecting vowel right there is going to be a present active infinitive. What does that mean we have? Well, that means we have an indirect statement. And it's not normal, but it's not entirely unexpected for an indirect statement to be introduced by this word. It's make someone, well, no. It looks like an indirect statement. It has all the different parts of an indirect statement, but this is not introduced by a verb of perception. Instead, does it make an accusative to do an infinitive? That's what's going on. Sorry. I would blame this on my cold, but this is a mistake I've made a couple times before. My apologies. But yes, accusative, plural, masculine. Then that ends his speech because erat autem tells us new clause. Erat is going to be third, singular, imperfect tense, active, and indicative. Now there was finum. With the we would initially expect an accusative. However, this word, which could also be spelled OE rather than AE, this is the nominative, singular, neuter word. Multum modifying that, and finum is grass or hay or fuel for a fire. In prepositional phrase plus the ablative, locus, loci, singular, masculine. Verb there, that's going to be part of a new clause, both because of ergo and because we already have our verb in this clause. One thing that I forgot to note is that discumbere specifically refers to the action of reclining down for a meal. So you'd have the couches with 3 people reclining on their left arms around a table. So you would normally have 9 people there. So it's just saying recline to eat because he's about to give them a meal. Moving on into our last clause, then, discumberunt, erunt, tells us that this verb now has become perfect, third person plural, ergo, therefore. And then we have our subject, viri, with the I, is going to be nominative, plural, masculine. And note the distinction that he's making here, that John is making here, between viri and homines. Homines tells us that we got a huge crowd of people. And then viri tells us a specific part of that crowd. I've written men underneath here because homo can sometimes just be men, and in the plural it's kind of awkward to say people, because in English when we do that we're talking about multiple different types of people, whereas this is just a crowd of all the people there. It could be that John is trying to say that there are a lot of different nations involved here. I don't know. But moving on, numero, here we have numero acting as an introduction to counting, and I forget what this type of clause is, not clause, what this function of numero is, but with the O, it's going to be, I think, ablative, singular, and I think it's masculine. I could be wrong there. And then quasi means about, it is adverb. Quinque, 5, as we've seen before, and then milia with that A is going to be well, what case would that be? Viri is masculine, so we would want milia to be masculine as well, but milia doesn't decline that way. We got millium, a single thousand, which does decline, I think, but once you get into the plurals of the thousand, it doesn't decline, so I'm just going to have to say indeclinable for that as well. But it's referring to the men, so by number, just about 5,000. So what it's telling us is that they're in this crowd of homines. There is 5,000 men, which means there are a lot more women and children. So let's go ahead and take a look at this in its own context. It says to him one from his disciples, Andrew, brother of Simon Peter, there is a boy here who has 5 loaves, barley loaves, and 2 fish. But these, what are they among so many? Therefore Jesus said, make people recline. Now there was much grass in place. They reclined, therefore, men by number, about 5,000, with the exclusion of the women. And I don't know what that is. Well, thank you very much for joining me. I hope taking a look at this has been helpful for you, and I hope that you have a very good day. Volley.